I'll text you the address." Those were the last words I'd typed to my son Marcus before pulling out of the Wells Fargo parking lot on Central Avenue, my phone warm in my hand, my heart even warmer. $12 million. $12 million had just been wired into my account from the sale of Hartford Analytics, the forensic accounting firm I'd built from nothing over 37 years. My late husband David would have been so proud. The Phoenix sun beat down on my silver Honda as I drove toward the house Marcus and I had shared since his father passed 4 years ago. Our house, the place where I'd raised him, where we'd celebrated every birthday, every graduation, every milestone. I couldn't wait to tell him. I'd already planned it out in my mind. We'd sit on the back patio with iced tea, and I'd explain how I wanted to split it. $6 million for him to finally start that restaurant he'd always dreamed of. The other $6 million for my retirement, maybe a small condo in Sedona where I could paint and watch the red rocks change color with the seasons. I was 67 years old. I'd worked since I was 19, putting David through law school, then building my own career while raising Marcus. I'd analyzed financial crimes for 3 decades: embezzlement, fraud, money laundering. I could spot a discrepancy in a balance sheet from a mile away. I could follow money trails that most people couldn't even see existed. That expertise had made Hartford Analytics one of the most respected firms in the Southwest. And now, finally, it had paid off in a way I'd never imagined. The retirement I'd planned was modest. David's life insurance had helped, but most of it had gone to Marcus's college at Arizona State, then his failed restaurant venture 5 years ago, then the investment opportunity that turned out to be a pyramid scheme. I'd never blamed him. He was my son, my only child. The boy I'd rocked to sleep when he had nightmares, the teenager I'd taught to drive, the young man who'd held my hand at David's funeral and promised we'd get through it together. As I turned onto our street, Saguaro Drive, lined with old mesquite trees and houses built in the 70s, I felt lighter than I had in years. Marcus was 34 now. This money would change his life. He could finally marry Lisa, his girlfriend of 3 years. They could buy their own place, start a family. Maybe I'd be a grandmother soon. I pulled into the driveway and sat for a moment, checking my face in the rearview mirror. I'd stopped at the salon that morning, and my gray hair was freshly styled. I'd worn my good blue dress, the one David always said brought out my eyes. I wanted to look put together when I delivered this news. I wanted Marcus to see that his mother had done something remarkable. The house was quiet when I approached, my heels clicking on the flagstone walkway. Marcus's truck was parked on the street, and Lisa's white Mazda was in its usual spot near the garage. Good. They were both home. I could tell them together. I reached for the front door handle, then paused. Voices were coming from inside, drifting through the open living room window, the one that always stuck, the one we never quite got around to fixing. Marcus and Lisa were talking, their voices low but urgent. "Can't believe it actually went through," Lisa was saying. $12 million. $12 million, Marcus. I froze. My hand still extended toward the door. "I know," Marcus replied. His voice sounded strange, tight. "My mom actually did it. Sold the whole company. So when is she going to tell you?" Lisa asked. "She texted me on the way home, said she has something important to discuss. She's probably going to offer me some of it, knowing her." My heart swelled. Of course I was. I was going to give him half. I started to reach for the door again, ready to walk in and surprise them. "How much do you think she'll give you?" Lisa's voice had an edge to it now. $1 million? 2? I don't know, maybe. She's always been weird about money. Weird about money? I'd given him everything. Every time he'd asked. Every time he'd needed. "Well, whatever she offers, you need to take it and act grateful," Lisa said. "But Marcus, we need all of it. Not just whatever scraps she decides to toss you." My blood went cold. "I know," Marcus said quietly. "I know. Dr. Renfrew said it would be easy. Your mom's 67. We just need to document a few incidents: confusion, memory loss, erratic behavior. He'll sign off on the dementia diagnosis. Then we file for emergency guardianship, and boom, you're in control of her finances." I couldn't breathe. The flagstone beneath my feet felt like it was tilting. "But she's not actually," Marcus started. "Of course she's not," Lisa interrupted. "That's the whole point. She's sharp as a tack. But who's going to question a doctor's diagnosis? especially when her devoted son is just trying to protect his aging mother. We get guardianship, move her into assisted living somewhere cheap, and we have full access to everything. The house, the money, all of it. Lisa, I don't know if... You don't know if what? If you want to be 40 and still living in your dead dad's house? If you want to keep waiting tables at Manuel's while your mom sits on $12 million? Marcus, we've been together 3 years. 3 years. And you still can't afford an engagement ring. She could give you that money right now, but she won't. She'll string you along with little handouts, keeping you dependent, keeping you under her thumb. That's not fair, Marcus said, but his voice was weak. Isn't it? She paid for that business of yours to fail. She bailed you out of the pyramid scheme. But did she ever just give you real money? Enough to actually start over? No. She keeps you close, keeps you needy. Well, I'm not spending the rest of my life being poor because your mother wants to play the martyr. There was a long silence. I stood frozen outside my own front door, unable to move, unable to think. This couldn't be happening. Not Marcus. Not my son. How long would it take? Marcus finally asked. My knees nearly gave out. Dr. Renfrew said once we file, maybe 3 months? 90 days and we'd have full control. She'd be in assisted living, none the wiser. We could even visit her, play the dutiful son. And Marcus? Lisa's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Think about what we could do with 12 million. The restaurant you've always wanted, we could open 5 restaurants. We could live anywhere, do anything. No more scraping by. No more watching other people have everything while we have nothing. She's my mother, Marcus said. And she'll be taken care of. That's what assisted living is for. It's not like we're hurting her. We're just taking control of assets that should be yours anyway. That money was made off your father's back too, you know. He supported her while she built that business. You have every right to it. Another silence. Longer this time. Then. When do we start? The words hit me like a physical blow. I grabbed the porch railing to steady myself, my purse slipping from my shoulder and hitting the ground with a soft thud. Inside, the voices stopped. Did you hear something? Lisa asked. I didn't wait to hear more. I turned and walked back to my car as quietly as I could, my heels in my hand now, moving in my stockings across the flagstone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. I started the engine and backed out of the driveway, my eyes blurring with tears. I didn't know I was crying. I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. By the time I pulled into a Starbucks parking lot 3 miles away, reality was setting in. My son, my only child, the boy I'd sacrificed everything for. He was planning to have me declared incompetent, to steal everything I'd worked for, to lock me away in some facility while he and his girlfriend spent my money. I sat in that parking lot for 20 minutes, crying, then 30. Then I stopped crying and started thinking. I'd been a forensic accountant for 37 years. I'd built cases against criminals who thought they were smarter than everyone else. I'd testified in court, sent people to prison. I knew exactly how crimes like this worked because I'd analyzed hundreds of them. Elder financial abuse, guardianship fraud. I'd literally written papers on it. And now, my own son was trying to do it to me. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and did what I'd done 1,000 times in my career. I started taking notes, names, dates, direct quotes, while they were fresh in my memory. Marcus and Lisa. Dr. Renfrew, whoever he was. Emergency guardianship. Assisted living. 3 months. They thought I was just an old woman, an easy target. They thought I'd go gentle into that good night. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I dried my eyes, reapplied my lipstick in the rearview mirror, and opened my laptop. I had work to do. The first call I made was to Janet Moreno, my attorney. We'd been friends since our kids were in Little League together. She listened without interrupting as I explained what I'd overheard, her breathing getting heavier on the other end of the line. "Eleanor," she said when I finished, "you're absolutely sure about what you heard?" "I spent 37 years listening to people explain away financial crimes, Janet. I know the difference between speculation and intent. They have a plan. They have a timeline. They have a doctor willing to falsify a diagnosis." "Dr. Renfrew, you said?" "That's the name Lisa mentioned." I heard typing. "I'm looking him up now. There's a Dr. Gerald Renfrew, psychiatrist, practices on Indian School Road. He's had 3 complaints filed with the medical board in the past 5 years. Nothing that stuck, but the pattern is there. 2 of them were related to questionable competency evaluations. My stomach turned. So he's done this before. Looks like it. Eleanor, you need to let them proceed. What? You need evidence. Solid, irrefutable evidence. If you confront them now, they'll just deny everything. They'll say, you misheard, you're confused. They might even use that to accelerate the guardianship claim. But if you let them make the first move, document everything, you can build a case that will not only protect you but potentially stop them from ever doing this to someone else. I took a breath. Janet was right. I knew she was right. What do I need to do? Go home. Act normal. Act like you don't know anything. If they think the plan is working, they'll get sloppy. They'll document things, text things, email things. And Eleanor? You need to record everything. Arizona is a one-party consent state, I said automatically. My husband had been an attorney. I knew the laws. Exactly. You can record any conversation you're part of without their knowledge. Do it. Every interaction, every conversation, and I'll start pulling together what we need for when this comes to a head. I drove home in a daze, but not the kind of daze Marcus and Lisa were probably hoping for. This was the focused clarity I used to get when I was closing in on a particularly complex case of embezzlement. Everything else fell away. There was only the evidence, the pattern, the proof. When I walked in the front door 20 minutes later, Marcus was in the kitchen making a sandwich. He looked up and smiled, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw my little boy. The one who used to bring me dandelions from the yard. The one who'd crawl into my lap during thunderstorms. Hey, Mom! How was your day? I set my purse down carefully, my phone already recording in my pocket. I'd started it before I walked in. Interesting, I said, proud that my voice didn't shake. I have some news to share with you. Is Lisa here? She ran to the store, but she'll be back soon. What's up? I poured myself a glass of water, taking my time. The sale of the company went through today. The money is in my account. Marcus's face lit up, and I saw something behind his eyes. Greed. Calculation. How had I never noticed it before? Mom, that's amazing. You must be so relieved. 37 years of work finally paying off. I am, I said, sitting down at the kitchen table. The same table where we'd eaten thousands of meals together. I've been thinking about what to do with it. He sat down across from me, leaning forward eagerly. Yeah? I'm going to take some time to think about my options. It's a lot of money, Marcus. I want to be smart about it. Maybe talk to a financial advisor, set up some trusts, that sort of thing. I watched his face carefully. There, it was a flicker of disappointment, quickly masked. That makes sense, he said. You should definitely be careful. Lots of people would try to take advantage of someone who just came into that kind of money. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. I was thinking, I continued, that I might go see Dr. Chen for a full checkup. I want to make sure I'm in good health, before I make any major decisions. At my age, you never know. Dr. Chen's great, Marcus said. But, have you ever thought about seeing someone who specializes in, older adults? Just to make sure everything is sharp mentally? I've been worried about you lately. My heart sank even as my recorder kept running. Worried? Why? Just little things. You've seemed a bit forgetful. Last week you asked me the same question twice, and you left the stove on that one time. I'd never left the stove on in my life. He was creating the narrative already. I don't remember that, I said carefully. That's kind of the point, Mom. You don't remember. That's what worries me. He reached across the table and took my hand, and I had to fight every instinct not to pull away. I love you. I just want to make sure you're okay. Maybe we should look into getting you evaluated by a specialist, just to be safe. What kind of specialist? A psychiatrist, maybe? Someone who can do cognitive testing. There's this doctor Lisa knows, Dr. Renfrew. He's supposed to be really good with older patients. There it was. The first move. I pulled my hand back gently. I'll think about it, sweetheart. Right now, I'm just tired. It's been a long day. Of course. You should rest. Oh, and Mom? He stood up, suddenly awkward. I'm really proud of you. For everything you've built. Dad would be proud too. I went to my room and closed the door, then played back the recording. Every word was clear, every lie, every manipulation, every step of the plan. I had it all. Over the next 2 weeks, I built my case the way I'd built hundreds of cases before, methodically, relentlessly, perfectly. I let Marcus and Lisa think their plan was working. I played the role they'd written for me, occasionally forgetful, sometimes confused. I asked the same question twice in one conversation. I misplaced my car keys and made a big show of finding them in the refrigerator. I watched Marcus's face each time, saw the sick satisfaction there as he texted probably Lisa, probably Dr. Renfrew, documenting my decline. I recorded every conversation. I set up hidden cameras in the common areas of my own house, completely legal, since it was my property. I watched them talk when they thought I was asleep, planning their future with my money. I hired a private investigator, an ex-FBI agent named Sarah Chen, who specialized in financial crimes. Within 3 days, she had a full dossier on Dr. Renfrew. 4 previous guardianship cases where his diagnoses had been questioned. 2 patients who'd lost everything to family members before the court finally intervened. 1 case where he'd split the proceeds with the guardian. I contacted the 2 previous victims whose cases had fallen apart. Both agreed to provide statements about Dr. Renfrew's methods. I scheduled appointments with 3 different psychiatrists and asked each one to perform a full cognitive evaluation. All 3 gave me perfect scores. All 3 were willing to testify if needed. I transferred the $12 million into a trust with Janet as the trustee, with strict instructions that no one, not even Marcus, could access it without court oversight. I kept $50,000 in the regular account, enough to make it seem like the bulk of the money was still accessible, and then I waited. The call from Dr. Renfrew's office came on a Tuesday morning. Marcus had made me an appointment for a routine evaluation the following Monday. The receptionist's voice was cheerful and professional. "It's just standard cognitive testing for patients over 65. Your son is just being cautious, making sure you're okay." "Of course," I said, my voice trembling just a little. "Perfect. Thank you so much. My son is so thoughtful." That night, Lisa and Marcus went out to celebrate. I watched through the camera feed as they left, Marcus's arm around her shoulders, both of them laughing. I sat in my late husband's study and cried, not because I was scared, but because I was grieving. The son I thought I had was gone. Maybe he'd never existed. Maybe I'd been blind to who he really was, or maybe Lisa had changed him. It didn't matter anymore. When they came home at midnight, drunk and happy, I was in bed with my light off. I heard them in the hallway. "Monday," Lisa whispered. "Just 4 more days. 4 more days," Marcus repeated. I didn't sleep that night. The following Monday, I got dressed in my nicest outfit. I did my hair and makeup carefully. I looked in the mirror and saw not a victim, but what I really was, a forensic accountant who'd spent nearly 4 decades hunting down criminals. Marcus drove me to Dr. Renfrew's office. In the car, he squeezed my hand. "It's going to be fine, Mom. This is just a precaution." "I know, sweetheart," I said softly. "I trust you." The lie tasted like ash. Dr. Renfrew's office was in a nice building with a view of Camelback Mountain. The waiting room had comfortable chairs and magazines about healthy aging. The receptionist smiled warmly as we checked in. Marcus stayed in the waiting room while I went back with Dr. Renfrew. He was in his late 50s, with silver hair and kind eyes that I immediately didn't trust. "Mrs. Hartford, please, sit down. Your son is very concerned about you." "Is he?" "He's noticed some memory issues, some confusion. I understand you've recently come into a significant sum of money. The sale of my business, yes. And you're planning to make some major financial decisions?" "I might," he smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "At your age, it's important to make sure you're competent to handle such decisions. I'm going to ask you some questions, show you some images, just simple cognitive testing. Nothing to worry about." The testing was a joke. Questions a 5-year-old could answer. "What year is it? Who's the president? Count backwards from 100 by 7s. I answered everything correctly but slowly, hesitantly, like someone who was struggling to remember. I saw him making notes, saw the way his pen moved faster when I paused before answering. "Mrs. Hartford, have you been having trouble managing your finances? Paying bills, that sort of thing?" "Sometimes," I lied. Sometimes I forget. And your son helps you with these things? He's very helpful. More notes. More knowing nods. I'm going to recommend some additional testing, he said finally, just to be thorough. But between you and me, Mrs. Hartford, I think we're looking at early-stage dementia. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Millions of people deal with this. The important thing is that you have a loving son who can help manage your affairs while you're still able to enjoy your life. Manage my affairs? Power of attorney, guardianship if necessary. It's all very standard. Your son has already started the paperwork, actually. He just wants to make sure you're taken care of. I'm sure he does, I thought. I left the office with Marcus, who was pretending to be concerned but couldn't quite hide his relief. I'd played the part. Dr. Renfrew had taken the bait. Now they'd move forward. Janet called me that evening. They filed this afternoon. Emergency petition for guardianship. The hearing is in 3 weeks. Do we have everything we need? Eleanor, we have enough to put all 3 of them away. The recordings, the camera footage, Dr. Renfrew's history, your clean cognitive evaluations from 3 other doctors, the financial trail showing how they plan to benefit. We have everything. Then let's finish it. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Not the grand space from TV shows, but a plain room with fluorescent lights and worn carpet. Judge Patricia Morrison presided, a woman in her mid-60s with sharp eyes and zero patience for nonsense. Marcus sat at one table with his attorney, a young woman who clearly had no idea what she was really involved in. I sat at another table with Janet. In the gallery behind us were Sarah Chen, the private investigator, all 3 psychiatrists who'd evaluated me, and, to my surprise, the 2 previous victims of Dr. Renfrew's schemes. Marcus couldn't even look at me. Lisa wasn't allowed in the courtroom, she wasn't family, and this was a closed hearing. His attorney stood. Your Honor, we're here today because Mr. Hartford is deeply concerned about his elderly mother's welfare. She recently came into a substantial sum of money, and he's noticed significant cognitive decline. We have a medical evaluation from Dr. Gerald Renfrew indicating early-stage dementia, and we're asking the court to grant Mr. Hartford emergency guardianship to protect his mother's assets and well-being. Judge Morrison looked at me over her reading glasses. Mrs. Hartford, do you have counsel? Janet stood. She does, Your Honor. And we're here to present evidence that this petition is not only baseless, but part of a calculated scheme to defraud Mrs. Hartford of her assets through elder financial abuse and guardianship fraud. Marcus's attorney looked genuinely shocked. Your Honor, that's an outrageous accusation. Is it? Janet opened her laptop. Because we have approximately 47 hours of recorded conversations proving otherwise. What followed was 3 hours of testimony that I'll never forget. Janet played recording after recording Lisa and Marcus planning the scheme, discussing Dr. Renfrew, celebrating what they'd do with their money. We played the camera footage of them plotting in my living room. We showed the judge Dr. Renfrew's history, the complaints, the pattern. All 3 psychiatrists testified that I was completely competent. One of them, Dr. Rachel Kimura, from Mayo Clinic, literally said, Your Honor, Mrs. Hartford's cognitive function is above average for her age group. She scored in the 96th percentile. The evaluation from Dr. Renfrew is not only wrong but appears to be deliberately falsified. Sarah Chen presented the financial evidence showing how Marcus had already opened accounts in his name, how he'd been pricing luxury cars and houses, how Lisa had been shopping for engagement rings that cost more than most people's yearly salary. The 2 previous victims testified about Dr. Renfrew's pattern of false diagnoses. Through it all, Marcus sat frozen, getting paler and paler. His attorney kept trying to object, but Judge Morrison shut her down every time. When Janet finally rested, the judge didn't even ask for closing arguments. Mr. Hartford, she said, her voice cold enough to frost glass, stand up. Marcus stood, shaking. In 30 years on the bench, I've seen a lot of things, but I have never seen a case quite this brazen. You conspired to have your own mother, a woman who by all accounts sacrificed everything to raise you, declared incompetent so you could steal $12 million from her. And you enlisted a doctor with a documented history of guardianship fraud to help you do it. She turned to Dr. Renfrew, who'd been called to testify and was now sitting in the gallery looking like he wanted to disappear. Dr. Renfrew, I'm referring this case to the State Medical Board, and the Attorney General's Office for Criminal Investigation. I'm also ordering an immediate review of every guardianship case you've been involved with for the past 10 years. Then back to Marcus. The petition for guardianship is denied. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order. Mr. Hartford, you are prohibited from contacting your mother or coming within 500 feet of her property. Mrs. Hartford, I'm also ordering that you provide a copy of all evidence to the district attorney's office. This court takes elder abuse very seriously. She banged her gavel. We're adjourned. Marcus tried to approach me as we left the courtroom. Janet physically stepped between us. Don't, she said. You heard the judge. 500 feet. He looked at me over Janet's shoulder, and for just a second, I saw something that might have been remorse, or maybe just fear of what was coming. Mom, You're not my son, I said quietly. My son died 4 years ago with his father. I don't know who you are. I walked away. The DA filed charges 2 weeks later. Marcus, Lisa, and Dr. Renfrew were all indicted conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted theft, elder abuse. Dr. Renfrew faced additional charges related to the previous cases. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I had to testify, had to sit there and recount the whole thing while Marcus stared at the defense table. Lisa cried through most of it, playing the sympathetic girlfriend who'd been led astray. It didn't work. The jury came back in 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Marcus got 6 years. Lisa got 4. Dr. Renfrew got 12, with reviews of his previous cases ongoing. I sat in that courtroom and watched my son be led away in handcuffs, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just an emptiness, where he used to be. That night, I sat in my late husband's study with a glass of wine and our wedding album. David looked back at me from those old photos, young and handsome and so hopeful. I don't know where we went wrong, I said to his picture. I don't know if it was something we did or something we didn't do. I gave him everything. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe we gave him so much that he never learned what anything actually cost. The house was quiet. Too quiet. It would always be too quiet now. I'm 73 now, 6 years later. Marcus got out on parole last year. He sent a letter. I haven't opened it. It sits in my desk drawer, and I still don't know if I ever will. I sold the house and moved to Sedona like I'd planned. I have a small condo with a view of the Red Rocks. I paint watercolors and volunteer at the senior center, teaching other elderly people how to spot financial scams. I've helped stop 3 guardianship fraud cases in the past 4 years. The money is in a trust that will go to charity when I die. Not a penny will go to Marcus. Not because I'm cruel, but because I know now that money was always the thing that destroyed us. Maybe if we'd been poor, he would have stayed the boy I remember. The one who brought me dandelions. The one who needed me for more than just my bank account. Some people ask if I have regrets. If I wish I'd just given him the money, avoided all of this. The answer is no. Because what he tried to do wasn't just steal my money. He tried to steal my identity, my freedom, my dignity. He was willing to lock me away, to tell the world I was incompetent, to erase me as a person all so he could buy nice things. That's not love. That's not even recognizable as human decency. I did the right thing. The law functioned. Justice was served. But there's a difference between legal justice and the kind that actually heals you. I won in court. I kept my money, my freedom, my life. But I still lost my son. And some nights, when the Sedona wind rattles my windows and the house is so quiet I can hear my own heartbeat, I wonder if there was ever really a choice to make. If the moment he decided to betray me, the moment those words left his mouth in our kitchen, when do we start? If everything that followed was already inevitable. I think about the day I taught him to ride a bike. He was 7, skinny and scared, and I ran alongside him holding the seat until finally I let go, and he was riding, and he turned back to look at me with this huge grin and shouted, "Mom, I'm doing it! I'm really doing it!" I wonder when he forgot that I was the one who taught him to ride, who held on until he could go on his own, who was always there, running alongside, making sure he didn't fall. "I'm doing it," he'd said. I guess he was right. He did it all on his own in the end, just not the way either of us planned. My advice, if you're still listening, watch for the signs. sudden interest in your finances, questions about wills and powers of attorney, suggestions that you might be declining mentally. These are classic tactics. Document everything. Trust your instincts. And remember, if you built something over a lifetime, you have every right to protect it. Even from your own children. Especially from your own children. Because the saddest truth I've learned is this: love can blind you to the truth, but greed is 20/20.